Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Jorge Acosta Palmer, and I'm the director of the Statewide Training Initiative with Florida Legal Services. We're excited to have you join us for today's webinar, Understanding IDEA, Syringe Service Programs, and Legal Protections in Florida. Before I introduce our speakers, I do want to go through some quick housekeeping announcements, as always. This training is being recorded. You're going to receive a copy of the recording in an email from Zoom, not from me, within 24 hours. If you don't see that email, no worries, just let me know. I'll drop my email in the chat just in case, and reach out to me and I'll make sure you get the recording and the materials. This training was approved by the Florida Bar for 1 general CLE credit and 1 health law certification credit. I'll announce the CLE code towards the end of the session. I will also drop it into the chat, and it will be included in the email that will go out from Zoom as well. Closed captions are enabled for anybody who needs them. If you're having any issues with accessibility or the captions, you can reach out to me directly. This training is being co-hosted by the Public Interest Law section of the Florida Bar, or PILS. If you're not familiar with PILS, I encourage you to take a look into their website and look at their subject matter areas and their operating committees. It's a pretty cool section, so I'll drop the link in the chat as well. And final piece of housekeeping announcements are questions and answers. If you have any questions related to the presentation, feel free to drop it into the Q&A module. We will address those questions towards the end if time permits. In the Q&A module, you have the ability to ask questions anonymously if you desire to do so. You can also interact with me, the host, and the panel through the chat as well if there's anything that you want to direct specifically to us. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers today. I'm going to start with Haley Brown. Haley Brown serves as a staff attorney in the Financial Stability Unit of Gulf Coast Legal Services. Haley earned their Juris Doctor from Stetson University College of Law and their Bachelor of Science from Florida State University. Haley has a passion for nonprofit work with 5+ years of legal assistance with the Legal Aid Foundation of Tallahassee and Gulf Coast Legal Services. Haley is dedicated to community investment and is an active volunteer with Pinellas Community Foundation and the Community Foundation of Tampa Bay. Haley is also an active volunteer with IDEA Pinellas and St. Pete Pride. Our other speaker is Amanda Bonham Lovett. Amanda demonstrates a profound commitment to overcoming stigma and creating equitable access for all. As a director of IDEA Exchange Pinellas, Amanda has played a pioneering role in developing and implementing Florida's sixth legally sanctioned syringe service program. Leveraging her extensive background as a licensed master social worker and years of programmatic public health experience, she brings a multidisciplinary approach to addressing the complex issues surrounding substance use, behavioral health, infectious disease, health equity, and advocacy. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to pass this over to one of our speakers today. Haley, the floor is yours.
Hey guys, so we're here to talk about the Infectious Disease Elimination Act. This is the statute that authorizes the implementation of syringe service programs in the state of Florida. So it began in 2016. It was initially passed as a 5-year pilot program at the University of Miami, Miller School of Medicine. It was known as IDEA Miami. And then only 3 years into a 5-year pilot program, it was so successful, it was signed into law by Governor DeSantis, and that became effective statewide in 2019. So now counties can opt into opening a syringe service program. I'll pass it over to Amanda.
Thanks, Haley. So we'll continue with the legal framework of the syringe service programs. Syringe service programs, or SSPs, are community-based services that provide sterile equipment and comprehensive resources to people who use drugs. IDEA requires a county commission to implement a county ordinance to authorize SSPs within the county. Syringes received from an IDEA exchange program are exempt from classification as paraphernalia under Florida law and cannot be charged as such. So participants who come to an IDEA program are able to enroll. They receive an anonymous participant ID number, and with that card has the law that states that they should not be charged with possession of paraphernalia for the syringes that they obtain in our program. So that's one of the parts of this legal framework to protect participants. We also include wraparound services to reduce or eliminate infectious diseases such as HIV and hepatitis C. So that exchange of used equipment for sterile equipment protects that being infected with infectious diseases. And then we also provide routine anonymous HIV and hepatitis C testing and linkage to services and treatment. And these programs have been proven to be effective because they operate with low barriers, no stigmas, and they significantly reduce overdose-related deaths and prevent infectious disease. So again, the goal of the program is disease elimination. Under the Florida statute, the program must follow a one-for-one exchange. This is not an evidence-based or best practice model. A best practice model for syringe service programs to prevent infectious diseases is a needs-based distribution. But under Florida law, whatever a participant brings into the program is what they are allowed to receive. And no state, county, or local funds may be used to implement or operate syringe service programs in Florida. And again, a big component of this program is anonymous HIV and hepatitis C virus testing. So anonymous tests for these diseases are very rare and not readily available in the state. And so it's a really great way to get people who are very high at risk for these infections to come into a provider that they trust and believe in and get that first step of information awareness. And then from there, we can connect them to treatment and other supportive services for those diseases. We also must include referrals or treatment for substance use, and again, those infectious diseases.
So there's currently 8 sanctioned syringe service programs in Florida. Here's the list of all of them by county. Miami-Dade has Idea Exchange Miami. That's through the University of Miami, Miller School of Medicine. Broward County has The Spot through Care Resource. Palm Beach County has Flash Exchange. That's through Rebel Recovery. Orange County has Idea Exchange Orlando. That's through Hope and Help. Hillsborough has Idea Exchange Tampa. That's through the University of South Florida and Tampa General Hospital. Pinellas County, which is what Amanda runs, has Idea Exchange Pinellas, and that's through PERC. And Leon County has Idea Exchange Leon, that's through Big Bend Cares. And Alachua has Idea Exchange Alachua. So SSPs are rooted in harm reduction principles. Harm reduction is an evidence-based approach to designing practices and policies to lessen the negative consequences associated with drug use. This approach honors the right to bodily autonomy and supports the belief that people who use drugs have the right to respect, health, and life-saving sterile injection equipment. This approach amplifies the voices of people who use drugs and prioritizes their involvement in shaping these policies. One of the biggest myths surrounding SSPs is that they encourage or promote injection drug use. They actually do not. SSPs only exist to provide safe injection equipment as well as resources in a low barrier, non-stigmatizing setting. This approach does not shame or penalize drug users for their drug use, which we know is what only drives people who use drugs further underground and out of care.
So here's a list of kind of an example of what services are provided at SSPs. So we have to kind of be creative sometimes in building trust and relationship and getting participants to come see us or come see them, whether it's a fixed site location or a mobile SSP, which is dictated by the county commission. So often we try to make sure that we provide food, hygiene items, and other incentives to encourage, again, accessing these services and building trust with them. So we provide hygiene kits, condoms. We also educate a lot on medications for opioid use disorder and MAT services. So making sure that if someone is seeking treatment, that they understand what that entails, what options are available, and then ensuring that we have those strong connections with service providers in our community so that we can kind of do that warm handoff to treatment. Again, big component of this, with it being the Infectious Disease Elimination Act, is HIV and hepatitis C testing and linkage to care. So that is part of our standard process. And with our program, we have a great partnership with a local HIV and hepatitis C community provider who opened an office directly next to us so that we could link our reactive participants directly to them for treatment. We can educate on various things such as overdose prevention, recognition, response, provide naloxone, and then also track when an overdose is reversed by our participants. We do provide fentanyl test strips now that they are legal. And then we provide a lot of education on safer injection practices so that we can prevent any complications from injection drug use that may lead someone into the hospital for a wound that may become infected or endocarditis. So making sure that they have the physical tools to practice safe injection use, as well as the knowledge and the skill set to prevent further complications and hospitalizations. And then we also provide basic wound care services for things that are a little more complex, and educating them on different trends that we're seeing in the supply. So different wounds may appear depending on what substances in the supply currently. So making sure that our participants are aware of that and keeping an eye out for specific tells of those wounds. Referral to any service that our participant needs. So we really truly meet them where they're at, and whatever need they have, we're going to do our best to meet that. So whether it's mental health, social services, helping them get their identifications, employment, housing, anything like that. And then we also have immunizations on site. So specifically our program in Pinellas County, we have the Department of Health on site once a month providing all adult immunizations. Okay, and so here's just a bit of a background on the public health impact. So in 2022, persons who injected drugs accounted for 7% of new HIV diagnoses. And again, this is significant because these programs that target people who use drugs and inject drugs are reaching a population that a lot of providers are not able to access or come in contact with regularly and build trust with them. So we're really able to get the smaller population who's very high need and high risk and get them the services that they need, so specifically for HIV. Certain service programs are associated with an approximately 50% reduction in HIV and hepatitis C virus incidence. So again, interacting with this at-risk population and intervening and continuing to monitor it definitely assists in reducing infectious diseases. Another great study indicates that, individuals who use certain service programs for the first time are 5 times more likely to seek drug treatment and 3 times more likely to quit drug use.
So here's some background on the economic impact. In 2017, Pinellas County spent $38 million to treat bacterial infections among people who inject drugs. The cost to treat one case of HIV over a lifetime can be up to $324,000. And the cost to treat one case of Hep C can cost up to $84,000. So you can just see here what a large impact this has financially on our healthcare system. And SSPs are supported by the Center for Disease Control, the World Health Organization, and the Florida Department of Health. And nearly 30 years of research shows that comprehensive SSPs are safe, effective, and cost-saving, and do not increase illegal drug use or crime, and they play an important role in reducing the transmission of viral Hep C, HIV, and other infections. So this is the specific carve-out within the IDEA statute regarding needles and syringes. So it is under Section 4, subsection C. It reads, the possession, distribution, or exchange of needles or syringes as part of an exchange program established under this subsection is not a violation of any part of Chapter 893 or any other law. So just kind of diving into that, what that looks like. This applies to needles or syringes distributed through the program. These syringes and needles are typically considered paraphernalia. This provides a statutory exemption for that. So even though they are protected under this statute, we have seen instances of police officers using the presence of these syringes as probable cause to justify searches. So Amanda's going to tell us a little bit about her observations here in Pinellas County and what she's seen from some of her participants.
Yes, so this is an area that I didn't think would be such a challenge to assist our participants with, but it has been challenging, and I think we've made some progress since we've been open. We opened in February of 2023. The challenges were really a lack of awareness by different law enforcement agencies. So in Pinellas County, there are various jurisdictions, cities, and municipalities. So ensuring that all of those different organizations and cities have this language and this knowledge that we exist has been challenging. So a lot of our clients initially were arrested for their paraphernalia, and I went through various outlets to try to advocate for them, trying to educate the public defender's office, our local law enforcement. We did meet with the state attorney and review some of the cases in which our participants were arrested and charged with possession of paraphernalia. And we are seeing a reduction in arrests for the paraphernalia with their syringes, but initially some of the feedback we would get was that how would they know that the syringes that they received from our program is what they had in their possession? So really kind of saying that if what they had in their possession didn't come from us, then they should still be charged for those syringes. And it's very difficult to purchase syringes in Florida, especially in Pinellas County. So our participants are not able to go to the pharmacy and buy syringes. There's a lot of discrimination there. So having access to them generally only comes from our program. So there's been education. We've seen just different, sometimes officers will see the points, as Haley said, the syringes, and use that for probable cause to search our participants. So it's just been frustrating. There's just been a lot of layers to applying this system for our participants. And again, as I stated earlier, when our participant is enrolled in the program is anonymous, but we do provide them with a participant ID card, and they have their own unique identification. So it includes answers to questions that would really only be specific to them. And we're able to look up that participant using that specific code if they lose their participant ID card. And that participant ID card, we tell them, is kind of their lifeline. So if an officer comes in contact with you, make sure that you have that with you, that you know your rights, that you can advocate for yourself. Because it's often the participants who are not as aware or maybe confident enough to speak up or able enough to speak up for themselves that are the ones getting in trouble and arrested for these charges. So I think just really educating, creating awareness has been the biggest success tool for this. And again, it also leads to additional charges. So finding that probable cause when they see the needles, of course, often they find other things. And so that person is going to potentially be arrested for additional crimes that they may not have.
Yeah, and even if they don't find additional charges, just any interaction with law enforcement that doesn't need to happen can be traumatizing or re-traumatizing for participants. Some of them have already had interactions with law enforcement or the criminal justice system, and they just don't have they didn't have a great interaction. So we just don't want them to have to go through this again, especially if they're not breaking the law, since there is this statutory carve out. So there are a lot of ramifications to a criminal drug record that can really impair a person's life. So a criminal drug record can impair growth, personal growth, education, personal development, and it will affect an individual's ability to afford basic needs and impacts their overall quality of life. One of the biggest ramifications would be incarceration. There's also financial instability. So criminal charges can also incur financial charges such as attorney's costs, legal fees, and fines. It can lead to job instability. Employers can consider criminal records when they're making financial or final decisions about hiring. It can lead to housing insecurity. Landlords often perform background checks, and a criminal record can lead to a denied rental application, as well as federal law permits public housing authorities or private landlords of subsidized housing to deny admission to anyone who has a record of past drug-related criminal activity. It can also lead to exclusion from education. So anybody with a felony conviction is ineligible for Florida Bright Futures Scholarship, the largest financial in-state financial aid program, and they may be expelled from a state university. It can also lead to exclusion for public benefits. Anyone convicted of drug trafficking is ineligible for both SNAP and TAMP without qualification or condition under Florida law. It can also lead to exclusion from voting. You lose the right to vote in Florida if you're convicted of a felony until you finish your sentence, including prison, parole, and/or probation, and you have to pay the money you were ordered to pay by a court when you were convicted. Another large issue is discrimination and stigmatization. Being discriminated has real ramifications for people who use drugs. It was linked to deteriorating mental health and negative self-talk, self-harm, and suicidal ideation, as well as prolonged periods of isolation, which have been related to poor health outcomes and health inequalities.
So if a person who uses drugs has some involvement with the criminal justice system, they may have distrust for lawyers in the legal system. Some legal issues may be complicated by an individual's drug use. Effective communication strategies include interacting in a non-judgmental manner and refraining from stigmatizing language. So having a substance use disorder or history of drug use can be difficult to navigate a legal system. There is still a lot of stigma towards people who use drugs, and oftentimes the individuals that we encounter have had negative or traumatizing experiences with the legal system. So that fear of stigma prevents them from wanting to engage in the legal system and having any trust that their rights will truly be supported. So it's, again, essential to demonstrate compassion and understanding to undo the social harm experience through stigmatization of persons who use drugs.
So moving forward, some best practices for legal advocacy for people who use drugs. One of the best things that we recommend would be partnering with community organizations and healthcare providers to ensure the needs of people who use drugs are met. So this can include SSPs, recovery community organizations, local health departments, and law enforcement. Establishing this kind of medical legal partnership will really help make sure that the healthcare and social services of people who use and inject drugs are met. You can also do something like joining a county opioid task force or a county round table, just making sure that you're coming to the same table so that everybody can discuss these needs with especially major community stakeholders. And some of the benefits of a medical legal partnership are, one of the biggest ones is trust. So being referred for legal services through a healthcare provider can help them trust that legal service provider since they're already in a trusting relationship with their healthcare provider. Another thing would just be sharing education with your community partners, especially training them on this IDEA statute and what the legal protections are for people who inject drugs and the challenges they face. It provides a great training opportunity for healthcare providers. A lot of participants and even the healthcare providers don't know the legal rights of people who inject drugs, or they don't know that participants may be facing a problem that has a legal solution that we're able to assist with. So just educating providers on what to look for and how to effectively screen to make a better referral system. And Amanda, I know, has had some really successful partnerships that she can talk about.
Yes, absolutely. So partnerships are key to the success of syringe service programs and ensuring that the complex needs of our clients and participants are met. And they're met with trust, compassion, care. So, I take a lot of pride and put a lot of attention on the partnerships that I forge to support our clients, because I want to make sure that when they go see this person I'm referring them to, that they are going to be treated the same way that I treat them, with dignity and trust, respect and compassion. So we've forged various partnerships. The Department of Health is on board, as well as the County Commission. They are part of our oversight committee, as well as Human Services. So they oversee everything that we do. and they're supportive of our program, of course. Without them, we would not be able to operate. So Human Services provides their street medicine team to come on site to our program. Right now, they're coming once a week. And so they have a small medical van that they bring and they park on site. They assist us with enrolling our participants in the county's healthcare program, and then also providing them with primary care services. So this is a huge need if someone has a complicated abscess that may need antibiotics or more intensive wound care, they're able to do that on site. And by them being there consistently, they're able to build that trust with our participants because, as we've said throughout, oftentimes our participants have really had a lot of negative experiences with the systems, especially medical systems and the legal systems. So it's imperative that they feel they can trust whomever is that we're connecting them to. And so they trust us, so then they trust our linkages for them. So street medicine is a huge one, and that's through Human Services. Department of Health is there providing on-site immunizations, as I mentioned earlier. We have Love the Golden Rule, which is our HIV hepatitis C provider located right next door. He's also primary care services. So we can literally walk our participants next door to start that enrollment into the treatment for hepatitis C and or HIV. We also are a telehealth site for the Department of Health. So anyone in the community who has the Pinellas County Health Program can come to our office and engage in a telehealth appointment for services. So of course, that's convenient for our participants as well. And then we also have a little tablet on site. It's called a PAR bot, and it's through Operation PAR, which is one of our substance use treatment providers in the county. So if anyone is interested in engaging in treatment for substance use disorder, they can log on to our tablet there, and it directly links them to the Access Center for Operation PAR. We also have a really great partnership with another substance use provider who we directly call to link someone there for medication assisted treatment, which is also free of cost for them. So, and then different housing programs. Our parent organization, PERC, is an outpatient substance use provider. We also have intensive case management services, housing programs. So we're able to link participants to that as well. And then another big component is just making sure that we have partnerships without the community who are aware of the needs of our clients and providing education on different issues that we see come up, such as the paraphernalia and educating pharmacists about the needs of participants. So that then maybe our participants can go purchase syringes from a pharmacy if they're not able to come to us. Because another big issue we're seeing with the involvement of law enforcement, they may not be arresting our participants now for syringes, but if they do come in contact with one of our participants and they decide to not arrest them, they will dispose of the syringes that they have in their possession, which is a big challenge because we do have a 1-for-1 exchange per the state law. So they'll come back and say, I don't have anything. The police, searched me, they found these and they disposed of them. So now I don't have anything. And then that person will engage in more risky behaviors to meet their needs, which is going to create potential health issues and then burden our healthcare system. So just, a multitude of challenges. Those partnerships are essential and key for advocating and ensuring the needs are met for persons who use drugs.
Yeah, and I really want to touch on that about them throwing away the syringes. Amanda mentioned earlier they can't really just walk into a pharmacy. You can walk into a pharmacy and purchase a syringe, but pharmacists do legally have the right to refuse to sell a syringe to someone. So people who inject drugs typically face discrimination and stigmatization, and they will be refused to be sold a syringe. So that is why it's so difficult for them and why this access to this kind of program is so necessary and why it's difficult when they throw out their syringe. Like she said, it's a 1-to-1, so they can't just go purchase another one and then bring it back in. They have to have one in order to get one under Florida law. So I just wanted to add that.
It's huge because if they reuse a needle one time, it's going to greatly increase the chances that they will have a complicated wound and then need to receive intensive medical care. So it is all about prevention. And if they're the thing they're using to keep themselves safe is taken from them and then they can't access that again, we're harming people, we're harming our citizens.
Absolutely. So this is our time for some questions and discussion. So if you guys have any questions, I think Jorge is helping us facilitate that. Or if you have discussion, if you have any best practices or any observations you've had, we'd love if you shared them.
Don't see any questions posted yet, but as Haley said, this is the opportunity. If anybody wants to post any questions into the Q&A, if you want to drop any comments into the chat, and if you feel brave enough, I can bring you off mute if you feel like you want to raise your hand and share what you've seen. So I'm gonna go ahead. I did drop Haley in the chat and Amanda. It was actually a map of the current counties that are participating or thinking about participating. So if you happen to know any other resources that you can point the people that registered, that would be great. And I see we have one question that came in. Do you have any information on who may be funding medical legal partnerships of this type? That's an amazing question. That's a great question. So Haley or Amanda, take it away.
I know I would look into opioid settlement dollars. I know Pinellas County is going to be administering theirs, and there's some through the state, and counties are also opting into it. So I would look there. Do you have any other, Amanda? Do you have any other recommendations?
Yes, so I think what Haley said is probably the best route considering the limitations that are put on these programs per the state statute. So it would have to be from private donations, private foundations, different, more creative outlets to fund that.
Another question that came in is, does this program cover anywhere other than Pinellas? I know it was kind of addressed, but if you want to kind of highlight some of your experience in that area or what to expect maybe moving forward with other counties kind of joining the fray.
What was the
Yeah.
start of that? I'm sorry. The start of that
The question
question.
was, does this program cover anywhere other than Pinellas? So even though the question was kind of addressed during the presentation, I guess this would be a good opportunity to talk about how everything progressed and maybe what to expect across the state as far as these programs growing.
Right. So in regards to the legal protections, I have had participants that were traveling outside of the county, and depending on the law enforcement agency, what I did have a few examples where the law enforcement agency was aware of these programs that did not charge them with possession of paraphernalia. So I think the statewide advocacy efforts are making a large impact, really driven a lot by the University of Miami, Miller School of Medicine. They are the original program. And they continue to support all of the other syringe service programs that are currently operating, and also interested in opening their own in different counties.
We had another question that came in the chat. Unless Haley, do you want to add anything to what Amanda just added?
Nope. Amanda did great.
We have one question here that it's a pretty great question. I actually kind of had it myself. So do you happen to have any more examples about the participant cards, and do they look the same county to county? Do they vary? How does that look right now?
Right. Yes, I was reading that earlier, which is why I didn't hear the first part of the question. So the participant cards are generally uniform, although they don't have to be across different locations. Again, the University of Miami had that pilot program, and they ironed out a lot of different resources. And so they share that with the other exchanges. So they all kind of look similar. Mine is like, the material I use is water resistant, tear proof. It's meant to be very durable. And it just, the basics, most of them I've seen have the name of the program, the phone number, the address, and then that state statute on their participant ID number, the person who did their intake for IDEA, and then a number on the front. And so they're all pretty standard, just different colors or formats depending on the brand of the program.
And it's just the size of a business card, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not very big. You can keep it in your wallet.
Another question that came in is how can larger organizations support the exchanges in their area?
So one of the biggest barriers for the exchanges is really that limitation regarding funding. So we're doing incredible work and really providing a very large amount of service to our participants with limited resources. So resources are very much needed, any funding opportunities. And then if you have any services that could support the participants, like maybe you're not able to provide any financial assistance, but if you could provide someone on site who could assist with other services, that would be incredibly helpful. Just advocating, sharing more information that these programs exist and the importance of them and the positive impact that they're having on your community, that would be incredibly helpful.
Yeah, and just being aware in your community of what the programs are, such as what idea is in your community, you know, where you can refer them to, and asking if there's any way that you provide services that idea participants need too as well.
And I like this was eye-opening for me. Like I was not aware of these protections before I became aware of this webinar. And it's one of the slides hit on the collateral consequences that drug use or a criminal record could have on a lot of the clients that we serve. So, can you provide some examples of like other? I know you had mentioned some community partners, but what has been the most effective outreach, and what type of community partners would you suggest?
So really any social service to support a community member. So like the legal aid is very, very helpful, being able to refer to Gulf Coast Legal Services in Pinellas County, assistance with obtaining legal documents. So oftentimes we see, you know, people are wanting to work, they're wanting to engage in different services, but they can't because of those barriers of not having their legal documents. So they've lost their social security card. They've had issues with the legal system that have kind of prevented them from maintaining those documents. So that would be very helpful. Different partnerships with medical providers as well. There are, you know, many needs for these participants, as well as just kind of dental services, mental health services, substance use services, housing providers, pharmacies, things like that.
Yeah, housing providers is a really good one. And I know I'm biased because I'm a lawyer, but legal services, I do believe that that's a really big one. Something to think about with the opioid settlement money is it does allow for legal services. And most people who use drugs have the need for civil legal services that you generally find at most legal aid providers. So things in the area of family law, or as Amanda mentioned, personal documents, identifying documents. So here at Gulf Coast Legal Services, we have a birth certificate clinic so people can get those documents that they need, as well as just general consumer matters like medical debt collection, just things like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm obviously a big proponent of legal aid.
Yeah, the first thought that came to mind, and you did mention how it can impact public benefits and housing. Right now, finding affordable housing for anybody is a unicorn, right? It's almost impossible. So having a criminal record and facing these challenges can make it extremely even more difficult than it usually is. So one of the things that popped up. I immediately started thinking about public housing and all these other subsidized housing properties where a there may be other ways to get in, but a criminal record could definitely have a devastating effect because not only is it's terminating their housing, but it's also negating their only income that they do have. So I'm checking for other questions and answers here. I've been dropping some links related to resources from the For the Health website. I also dropped an LSC link here related to the opioid task force as well.
And I would say going back to the housing component as well, there's such a need for supportive housing. So people still want to be housed if they're using drugs. And there are so many housing programs and social service programs that will not provide services if you're using drugs. And so I think everybody should have access to safe housing regardless of the behaviors that they're engaging in. And so that's a very, very huge need, is expanding access to programs for people who use drugs that isn't focused just on them abstaining from substance use.
Yeah, that really goes back to those harm reduction principles that everybody has the right to bodily autonomy, and you deserve housing even if you're somebody who does inject drugs. It shouldn't be one or the other.
Yes, and I think a lot of people would be surprised to see the array of individuals who use injection drugs. It's not always what you think it comes to mind. There are a lot of people who are working full-time, normal jobs, have families, and are injecting drugs. So it does not discriminate.
Yes, another kind of question to kind of put it out there. If you're an attorney serving in a county that does not have a program like this one, where would you start here as far as outreach or trying to identify, how do we get a program like this started in our county?
Well, as far as getting a program started, that would be with the University of Miami. Her name is Shelby Metters. She's the director of expansion. I would contact her and I can drop her information in the chat. But also just connecting with service providers that are still helping people who inject drugs. So recovery organizations, Department of Health, recovery housing, things like that, reaching out to them, still just making sure you still include this population in your service area.
Right. So yeah, as Haley said, I would definitely reach out to Shelby with the University of Miami. They offer technical assistance to any organization interested in starting a syringe service program, and are incredibly helpful at helping you really understand what is needed to fully plan and implement and execute these programs, as well as advocate to get that ordinance passed, because you need your county commission to be on board, and that can take sometimes a long time, that process of educating, advocating, having meetings, and then getting that ordinance passed.
Right. And if possible, Haley, I will ask you to share this information with me. I'll include it in the materials as well. And speaking of, I will send out an email with the copy of these slides as well. I'm actually going to copy it and put it here on my end just to have it. Have her contact information. Okay, so it looks like we're wrapping up early unless anybody has final comments or questions in the chat. So before we wrap up, any closing statements, Haley or Amanda, any final takeaways?
Thank you guys so much for being here. This is a really important topic to us, and it's not really spoken about too much in Florida, even though we have this amazing program. It's only been around for a few years, and we really want to see it grow because Florida really does have a lot of substance use, a ways to go in that area, and we're really excited to be presenting on this.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing us to be here. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about, and so if you would like to reach out afterwards, ask me any questions, I can share any of our data on our outcomes. Anything that you have questions on, please feel free to reach out. I am happy to respond and engage. Thank you.
Right. So as we conclude the webinar, I wanted to thank our speakers again for emphasizing the critical importance of syringe service programs and the legal protections under IDEA. It really highlighted, the importance of harm reduction, that harm reduction approach, and supporting people who use drugs, and understanding the statute, the criminal protections it provides for participants is essential for effective advocacy and outreach. A heartfelt thank you again to our speakers, Haley and Amanda. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us and getting us through this vital topic. Your dedication is amazing. It's truly appreciated. And thank you again, everybody that registered and participated. We look forward to seeing you in all future events. Have a great afternoon, everybody.